Hello, my friend. Welcome back to the show that never ends. I want to start off today by reading you an email that I received, and I want you to react accordingly. I'm not going to ever mention your name, so you needn't be embarrassed. But it reads as follows. Lionel, I'm sure you're aware that chemtrails are simply the visible residue of the methodical high-altitude spraying of fly ash into the atmosphere in order to dispose of the substance. Fly ash is a byproduct of the coal-burning electrical industry, and because of the very expensive land disposal requirements for it, the industry has quietly, quotes, resorted to the cheaper spraying technique, probably thinking the public either won't notice or if they did and question, be ignored. Most folks think it's a weather controlling technique, a population extermination plan, etc., but no, it's just a money-saving scheme with unknown collateral consequences. Regards, this is from a fellow in New Mexico, and there's a picture of his sky. He says, see, no chemtrails today. That is not true. But I appreciate it. And this may, in fact, have occurred, but that's not it. That is not it. And I'm not going to do a dissertation today on chemtrails, but this is something that I received, and it was very, very interesting to me, and I wanted to just share that with you, because no, that's not what happened. That's not what happened at all. I did a substitute radio appearance on my alma mater, WABC, and talked about this thing called fake news, and I always have to kind of watch it when I do regular terrestrial radio and local, not this stuff, because people really react too strongly if you hit them too hard with a lot of stuff that we talk about that you can handle, that I know you can handle, but you got to be careful. And one of the issues that I brought up was how there was no indication whatsoever of Russian influence regarding the elections, changing the elections, changing the vote, changing the outcome, changing the whatever of the vote itself, versus just hacking the DNC. And it's tough sometimes on radio because I don't know if I'm making a headway because to me it's such an important point. And the issue is that you say there's Russian hacking, but Russian hacking is really not that big of a deal. The issue is, did you affect the election? There's also a story, I don't know if you saw about this, but Ivanka Trump was on a JetBlue flight heading to West Palm or something, and one guy in particular, a real jerk, started yelling at her. And, basically, your father's going to ruin this country. And I know it's not so much that happened, but I know that there's this really nasty, snippy, snitty group of folks who, by virtue of their, not liking Trump, they feel they have a moral right, if you will, a moral high ground, almost a moral imperative to say something, to do something about this, to act accordingly. It's not just enough to feel something or to feel a particular way. They have the right and the ability to act like complete and total jerks when it comes to being involved in protesting and stating something that you're feeling one way or the other. I don't understand this. I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't understand why people are such dicks. If it's a pretty tough phrase, but it's one of those things where I don't understand how people feel that somehow they can get away with this. I'm not sure if you've ever had this happen to you before. You may have come upon groups one way or the other who agree or disagree with what you're feeling, And I've never felt like I wanted to yell at somebody, especially somebody who has nothing to do with her father's running for president. And they were yelling, "Why are you on this commercial flight? You should be flying private or something." It's nice to see the Trumps taking JetBlue and you know what it is. Plus her kids were there. And he goes to show you this, again, this era now of absolute incivility. Because it's not so much that I disagree with you, but I could hate you and chide you and abuse you. There was a story I read today in the New York Post about a man who killed his mother because she was goading him and rubbing it in about the Cowboys winning. And granted, you're going to say, well, that's Dallas Cowboys. That's a rare find, or it doesn't really happen that often. We're seeing more and more of this. Because it's not enough for me just to dislike your opinion. I dislike you, and anything about your opinion, I can say or do whatever I want. If that makes any sense whatsoever. And I don't understand why that's happened. I have lived the longest, well, most of my life, dealing with a lot of people who feel many different beliefs than I do. And I've never felt angry towards them for their belief. How they express that belief is a different story. But I don't feel angry. I don't feel whatever it is. I don't feel angry. You know, you can believe anything you want. And I know we talk to people around the world, and I'm sure you must see this in your country as well. Maybe there's an issue. Maybe it's a football or a sports issue or something along those lines. But I got to tell you something. It is something that, to me, shocks me to no end. You see, so that you know this about me, if you care, I don't give a damn what you feel. I mean, I really, honestly don't care. And you can feel whatever you want. And you can be, I mean, I thought the last person I thought who was really kind of sort of insane, not insane, typically insane, but colloquially, was Sarah Palin. I thought, you've got to be kidding me. Yet I knew people who were absolutely head over heels in love with Sarah Palin. Now, that's fine. I'm at the time, because that's the last time I ever thought, wow, this is nuts. What are they thinking? What Sarah Palin are they dealing with? You know. But I never felt this degree of anger, one way or the other. All right, I belabored the point on that one. That's neither here nor there. We're in the midst right now of Christmas time, the throes of Christmas. Give you an idea of what Christmas in New York is like. My wife right now has, where is that Yankee Doodle candy candle from? Is it Bed Bath Beyond? Oh, Bed Bath & Beyond. Is that a Yankee Doodle?
No, honey, it's Yankee Candle.
Yankee Candle. I'm calling it a Yankee Doodle. And it's got a very interesting smell. What is that? What would you call it?
Balsam and cedar.
Balsam and cedar. So the place smells like a cedar or balsam for a forest fire.
But you like it, right?
But I like it a lot. It's got that nice cedar and balsam smell. 'Tis the season. Let me explain to you a little bit about changing the subject. Just a tad of what Christmas means to me. I was growing up in Florida at the time, and never saw snow, obviously. Never saw cold. Ever. I mean, it was kind of cold, but... And we consequently had things where we would sit around, you know, with the air conditioning, the pool, you know, wearing shorts. It really, singing White Christmas had no connotation whatsoever. But at the time, what I remember the most was believing and feeling, when I was a kid, the sense of being in awe. And believing when I was, and I don't know how long I believed this or what for how long, I'm not really sure, but believing in Santa Claus. I was a kid. And there's a whole debate of whether you should tell kids about Santa Claus. And by the way, if there's any kids listening, there is a Santa Claus. But I remember at the time feeling this sense of awe. It was something that just transcended even God. I never grasped God. Never, never, ever, because it was too. God was just filling the blanks. And where do babies come from? God. And rainbows? God. And God. Heaven? God. Can't see heaven, but with Santa Claus, you have a series of remnants, cookies and things that Santa Claus would eat. He'd come to your place, leave the toys, and then nibble, and then take off and leave forensic evidence of his, existence. So he was magical but human, kind of in this weird admixture. I thought he was here. And it was a sense of awe. It was really a great feeling. I thought, I really have a hyper idealized appreciation for it, for awe, for lack of a better word. And I thought that I really liked that feeling. It was like when somebody sometimes they say that alcoholics will explain that when the first time they ever took a drink, not all, but some, the first time that hit, the warmth, the smell, the taste, the feeling, whatever that was, whatever this combination and admixture of things were, that it stuck. It made a real impact, and something hit them. Well, that was awe for me. I thought, this is great. I really like this feeling. I want to. And then after Santa Claus, I never felt it again, and I kind of missed it. And then came the notion of UFOs, EBEs, ETs, extraterrestrial, flying saucers and all that kind of stuff. And that's where I am now, because I will think about that. And it reminds me, this is what I felt like when I was a kid, because I was so amazed by the enormity of the subject. So amazed over this cosmic, wow, kind of a thing. And then, going back to the Santa Claus thing, there's something that also affected me when your parents and the world are deceiving you. Now, I know I've mentioned this before, and I don't want to make too much out of it. I don't really think, my life, I'm not scarred. But it was a very interesting impact. It showed me that people around you, relatives, parents, the government, media, friends, culture, society, tradition, history, Madison Avenue, all these things can conspire to say something and to present something that's not true. And they will look you in the eye and they will tell you, oh, this is it. Have faith. We wouldn't lie to you. I mean, after all, now follow this in terms of religion or anything else. Well, there must be something to it. Why? Well, all these other people believe it. They wouldn't believe it unless there was something to this. You don't think for a moment that somehow this is just, us. I mean, you can't think that this is some kind of a lie. Do you know how many people would have to be in on the lie? I mean, it's really something if you think about it. It's a perfect analog to everything from 9/11 to government lies to whatever it is. But it's the first time you're a part of this con. And I thought that's really interesting. And that part stuck with me. Not so much that, I wasn't harmed, but I realized, you can pull something off like this. You can pull something off where A, somebody's conning you. B, you're a part of the con, self-induced delusion, where you kind of want to be a part of the con. You like it in a strange way. You also are in such a position where you don't really feel that bad for being conned because everybody else is being conned as well. Then you are rewarded for believing the con. Take religion. I mean, I don't believe in anything that you would call a God in any way whatsoever. But if you really want to do well, at least in this country, you want to run for office, you want to, believe me, having some kind of faith, especially a faith that is accepted, not Muslim or anything like that, God forbid, but a God-fearing Christian belief, oh yes, you will go far. In fact, you cannot run for office. You cannot probably enjoy certain benefits of society if you don't believe in this. The con is sometimes most beneficial for you to be a part of. The con, the deception, the belief, the collective fantasy. Let me tell you something. It really pays. And forget whether you're an R or not. If you get along with the system, and if you play along, and if you say the same things, and repeat the mantra, and repeat the rote phraseology, you'll do well. Much better than people who don't believe in the system. That's why this whole thing about, especially here in this country with Christianity, oh my God. I mean, did you see Donald Trump when he was claiming, I mean, I have no reason to believe one way or the other, but he had the family Bible, his family Bible, and he was trying to show that, yes, I'm conversant with this, but I thought to myself, you know, I wouldn't be surprised, and I don't know Donald Trump, but I wouldn't be surprised if he said, well, I kind of believe in a God or a higher power, but I don't really, I don't practice it. I don't go to church. I don't, That's almost, in some respects, tantamount to being an atheist. So going back to the Santa Claus analogy, what it taught me was sometimes, even though you kind of don't believe it, and even though you're not really surprised that there's nothing there, and even though it might behoove you greatly to say that you believe in things. In fact, not only God, but certain things. Popular political belief, popular jingoistic belief, popular flag-waving American truisms and shibboleths and phrases and catchphrases and pithy little sloganeering. It helps sometimes. It really does. And another thing, going back to Santa again, why that was important. I don't understand to this day why anybody has not at all, not only not questioned the official story of 9/11, but not even read about it, even read what people are saying, And I know how that works. Why? Because I remember Santa Claus. People that I knew when I was a kid, I didn't really question. I mean, I did question it, but I didn't question it too much because I was the beneficiary of this. You're also not going to question too much God and the problems with religious ideology and theology, because especially when you're reaping or achieving some kind of benefits from it, you're not going to be asking questions. I mean, it doesn't make any sense for you to do that. I mean, why would you? Why would you bite the hand that feeds you, so to speak? But I know there are people who say, well, we're not going to ask questions about 9/11. Well, it's a conspiracy theory for one thing. And plus, I'm not really met with a lot of acceptance. I don't really like this, the looks I'm getting from people when I bring this up. So I'm just going to let it go. Same thing with religion. I mean, going back to Santa, going back to God, start asking real, rational, logical questions. I mean, after all, shouldn't God make sense? Shouldn't God, the creator of everything, make sense? Shouldn't God withstand at least a degree of some initial questions as far as the, the likelihood of there being a God? Don't you think you should ask questions? Don't you think so? You should, but just like with Santa, sometimes you learn you're a little bit better off not asking questions. See, that's why Santa is such a very, very important aspect of my growing up. It really provided me with a great degree of learning. Collective deception, collective mythology, collective belief. It's God. I mean, God. The other day, I don't spend a lot of time with this, but I can with you because I can share this with you because I think you understand it. I'm not ever challenging you to your belief. I'm not saying your belief system is wrong. Just why I'm asking you, don't send me some biblical verse because I haven't read Numbers yet, or St. Paul of the Corinthians or whatever. I mean, that's not going to work. So save your time with that one. But I like asking this very, very simple question. How can you not notice these questions? Just like I did then. I was asking questions about Santa Claus then, over and over again, but they kept lying to me. They kept saying, no, that's not, don't get too involved, enjoy. After all, we're your parents. We wouldn't lie to you. We're your government. We wouldn't lie to you. It was so funny. Today I was listening to somebody during my radio stint, and somebody suggested there was a story that said the CIA, American intelligence efforts, have verified that indeed there was Russian hacking in the DNC. Again, what does this have to do with changing the election? They don't say. But I thought to myself, oh, the CIA, huh? Well, that's a good group. I never would ever want to question them. I mean, after all, it's the CIA, for God's sakes. They don't lie about stuff. When has the CIA ever lied? Are you kidding? And the very fact that they actually, it was so funny because I was sitting next to a very nice person who read this story, and I'm kind of laughing at the notion of me believing the CIA, who basically passed on the legitimacy or the veracity or the verity of this story. It would be like me asking a store Santa, is there a Santa Claus? Are you real? Of course I'm real. Well, he said so. Why would the store Santa laugh? Remember Miracle on 34th Street? Did you ever see that one, that movie? Natalie Wood and Maureen... Is it Maureen O'Sullivan or Maureen O'Hara? I get them confused. Anyway, Maureen O'Hara, thank you. My wife. I think I'll keep her. Remember that terrible commercial? It was an awful commercial in the 60s. Anyway, I love that commercial because they put Edward Gwynn, or whatever his name was, they put him through the test where he had to explain who he was. And Natalie Wood, as a young girl, was asking, are you sure you're Santa Claus? How do you do this? How do you know all these things? How do you, and it was a perfect analog, of course, to God. And, of course, the way they got him was, of course, if the U.S. Postal Service acknowledges Kris Kringle or this man as being Santa Claus, then they take judicial notice, in essence, of this distinction, this determination, and therefore that acts as some degree of proof that would warrant a jury or court to believe, this person was indeed Santa Claus. But I love, even then, she's asking these questions. I don't understand this. I don't understand this. Recently, there was a story about God, and they were saying, why is it? Oh, I know what it was. I was watching one of my YouTube, the Four Horsemen. Daniel Dennett, Sam Harris, Richard Dawkins, Krauss, the physicist, and I guess Christopher Hitchens. And they were asking, why, if there is a God, would God let there be such suffering? If there is a God, and God is loving, and why would God allow this to happen? Why would there be... Aren't you tired of that topic? Now, not to be God's advocate, I could be the devil's advocate, but God's advocate. But I think God, this is a bit anthropomorphic, but I think God would say, I never said I changed stuff. I let stuff occur. I created this world. Yeah, but why did you create this world that was so full of bad people? Why didn't you make better humans? Why did you make humans that were so horrible? God would say, well, most of them aren't. Most of them are great. It's just a few people. It's a few people that you allow put into office, and you give them the power to be bad. See, Adolf Hitler would have never hurt anybody had you not elected him. Yeah, but we didn't know. Why didn't you stop that? Why didn't I stop you? Why didn't you stop you? I'm sure God could have a lot of fun with that, just basically coming back with this retort constantly of, I gave you free will. Do you want free will or not? So then you ask God, wait a minute. If you're not going to affect anything, then why am I praying to you for any kind of a change? You're not going to interfere. Well, I've been known to change a few things. Wait a minute. Why are you changing things? Well, because you asked me. Oh, so if I don't ask, you're not going to do it? I've got to ask you, let this 3-year-old survive leukemia and get better? I have to ask you for that? And if I don't ask? What? This is where I get lost in the shuffle. And that's why I back off. How do I know that? From Santa Claus. When I used to wonder, as a kid, how is it that he went to people's houses overnight, and we always got our gifts on Christmas Eve? What, does he come to me early? And how come the stuff he gives me, I can get in the store? What is he, the middleman? I don't understand how this thing works. What do these elves do? I don't understand this story. It's a weird story. It's a strange story. Old man, Mrs. Claus, he makes stuff, he eats cookies, he got reindeer. Of course, I was a kid when the story didn't make sense. There was so much that was wrong with it. And remember, I was told repeatedly by parents, by society, by Gene Autry, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, have a holly jolly. I was told by everybody, even Edmund or Edwin Gwynn in that movie, Miracle on 34th Street. They said it. They repeated, yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus. Every time I turn around, there's somebody from society telling me there's a Santa Claus. The same way they're telling me there's a God. The same way they're telling me that if you pray, God will answer your prayers. Maybe. And the same way they're telling me, no, there's not any UFOs. There's not any ETs. There's not any EBEs or flying saucers or critters. Isn't that interesting? It just so happens that whenever society or they tell me something exists, it turns out to be false. When they tell me something doesn't exist, that's when there's more evidence of that. I will kind of wrap this up because I think this is the spirit for thinking about these mystical things. The greatest guide to me in terms of religious mythology wasn't God or Jesus, but the devil. And not every religion has the devil, Satan, the way we did. And I found out later on that it was actually changed or modified drastically when Christians adopted a lot of pagan imagery. Pan and the hooved, half man, half deer, whatever the hell it is. It would, basically combine the two, kind of a portmanteau, so to speak, of man and whatever thing, horse or pony, whatever the hell this thing is. And that's where our Lucifer came from. You remember the cloven hooves, the horns and the tail with that little serpent's tail, the dragon's tail, and, all of that. I love that. And there are people today who honestly believe that the church, who believes in exorcism, who believes that there is Satan, the humanification, so to speak, the manifestation, the presence of evil as the devil. They honestly believe that. Now that is beautiful. Okay. Pretty heavy stuff, but it was on my mind. I want to also thank me and Mrs. L here. Love your, we saw,
More pictures.
we want more pictures coming from you. We saw some pictures of you from, who was it? She was so sweet. She made cookies.
Pictures of people watching you
Right.
on their TV.
Well, there's two kinds of pictures we love. One is she sent pictures of me on the, phone or whatever it was, while she made cookies on her tablet as she made ginger molasses cookie. I mean, that was great. Then just love that. I've been reposting that. That is so gratifying, especially from all over the world. That is an amazing thing. So keep those cards and letters coming, those pictures. I'm just asking you for this because it amuses me.
Vinyl merchandise coming in the new year.
Yes. Very good. Thank you. Lionel merchandise coming in the new year. I don't know what. I'm sure you'll purchase it. Then you can have pictures of you drinking out of your mugs, which will have painted in China with the poisonous lead paint. I want to have American made only. But then again, if you're from some other part of the world, that doesn't mean anything to you. But trust me, that's a big deal here. So thank you for that. Also, don't forget to like this particular video. Don't forget to also always subscribe and pass it on to other people. And drop me an email, lionel@lionelmedia.com. I will respond. It may not be the most loquacious response, but I will certainly respond. And I thank you for that. I truly, truly do, because you've made Lionel Nation, the channel, just bigger than anything I'd have expected. And I thank you for that. And Mrs. L thanks you for that. So, on behalf of Grateful Nation, we thank you for this. And remind you, as we always do, to comment as you see fit.